Okay.
You start that
I'll
side
start.
this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Mustangs and Veterans panel. My name is Amanda Howell. I'm the founder and executive director of HOOVS, which stands for Healing of Our Veterans Equine Services. And our program is located in Northwest Ohio. And we fly veterans or their family members in from all over the country. And they go through a 4-day healing intensive program where we incorporate a curriculum, work with horses, and various mindful practices like yoga, meditation, breath work, and energy work. And so we're all really excited to be here today. And I think do you want to go down the line and we can give a little bit of a brief description of all of our programs. And then we were going to ask, are there any veterans in our audience? Awesome. Thank you for your service. And then after we introduce ourselves, we're going to lead with some questions. So
For mental health for almost 30 years. I co-founded an organization called EGALA, which trained and certified professionals worldwide, and did that for 21 years. And then in 2021, started 2 new projects, Arenas for Change, which is training professionals in a little different ways, a little broader pack, the physical therapy and therapeutic riding and stuff. But the mental health side is still relatively new. And it's come a long way with getting some awareness and credibility, but it has a long ways to go. There's still a lot of people out there that are suffering with mental health challenges, and they don't even know stuff like this exists, that there are programs that can serve and really have some amazing solutions for mental health, personal growth, any kind of health needs. So with Horses for Mental Health, we do our annual Seen Through Horses campaign. A wonderful partner, Equine Network, is here as well. That's part of that. And of course, Equine Arts Fest, we partner on it. So we're set that up as a collaborative effort because when we all work together, we're louder and we get more attention. And by that, more people are going to learn about this, and more resources will hopefully also be directed to these wonderful programs that these guys are representing that provide the direct services. So if anybody's interested in getting involved with this campaign, it's each May, Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's really just sharing stories, supporting these wonderful programs, and we create wonderful videos that we hope you'd like to share with your friends and anybody you can think of to spread the word about what horses bring uniquely. Things.
And I work with veterans and with base camp for veterans, really similar to HOOVS as far as conceptually. So one of the things I'm excited about is the fact that we can work together and get ideas, so we're not reinventing wheels and have that collaboration. So I'm excited about that. I've been working with Mustangs since 1994, and was asked to develop the Wild Horse Inmate Program for the state prison. And within that program, we had a surprising number of veterans that ended up in prison. When they got out, they were dealing with their issues and self-medicating and other issues. So I'm a veteran. When I got out of the military, I went in '72 during Vietnam, and when I got out of the military, I went into law enforcement, and back then we would refer to PTSD as shell-shocked or something along those lines, and there really wasn't any kind of an organized effort. You just kind of were told to deal with it. So, and not in those words, but that was the bottom line. And so there certainly wasn't anything to do with equine and some of the things that are really working for veterans. It was more medication, and there was no long-term solution. So I'm looking forward to being part of this panel.
Awesome. Thanks, Randy. Lynn. Thanks you guys all for being here. I'm Alex Adams. I'm with 10th Mountain Equine. We're based in Colorado, but we serve all over the country when we are able and where we are able. We work with equine-assisted therapies, activities, and education. We use Mustangs and ponies and horses of all different sizes and shapes and colors. Our objective is to be able to bring more wellness and more healing to everybody. We work with veterans, we work with kids, we work with groups of all sorts. We have people come out for team building sometimes. And one of the things that we try to focus on is being able to have people and horses both be participants in something we call the circle of giving, where everyone benefits. The horses get healed and the people get healed. And by doing so, we end up being able to just make everything world hopefully a little. I'm not as young as I look. So I got my first Mustang. I rescued him out of a undesirable situation, and that was 18 years ago. And we've just continued growing the Mustang group that we have out at our as part of our herd out in Colorado, and very happy to be here and very happy to be part of this collaboration that doesn't just involve us, but involves every one of you guys who are here. So thank you all for being here.
Great words.
I'm Mike Dunn. I'm the founder of Equine Assisted Therapy. We call it EET. As a veteran, when I finally stopped sitting on the couch and bitching about the way veterans were being treated relative concern for at-risk children, and at-risk children in LA are at risk. And so my particular focus is I thought that it was in the relational part that the horse provides in coming together. And ultimately, it became self-trust. The fact that horses hold us to a much higher level of self-trust in order to be in their herd or in their company. And what I noticed to be virtually 100% of the veterans that we were working with, they all lacked self-trust. They had decided that they were unable to be a parent, a spouse, a friend, work, hold a job, even in the community. And so my particular emphasis in our programs is really what's happening. How is this affecting you? And much like what Randy said, I was in the Vietnam era, and I remember our psychotherapy on mustering out was a bottle of Jack Daniels, and the caution: don't wear your uniform in public. Mm-hmm. And so that was mental health in those days, and it's so delightful to have these folks and their experiences that fill a hell of a gap for me. And so I'd like to join the rest of the panel in saying thank you for being here.
My name's Will Friday, and I work with Mike and Clay at EET. And my role within the organization is primarily guiding veterans through our vocational training program. We basically have an open slate for veterans who come in and want to work with horses, be around horses, whether that's as a volunteer or in a paid position. And through all of our contacts in the equine world in Southern California, if we have a veteran that comes through and says, I want to be a farrier, we will set them up with a veteran who's a farrier who can take on an apprentice. If they want to go to vet school, we'll pre-vet, whatever. My background is primarily as a Masterson Method equine bodywork practitioner and instructor, and we've incorporated the Masterson Method style of bodywork into helping the veteran build that trust with the horse and be in a role that they're providing relief for the tension and soreness in that horse's body through just the fact that they're a horse, and seeing that they have something to give back to the horse in being of service to them as well. So I work with
Yes.
the veterans in that aspect, and we also have a wonderful program that came out of working with the Blind Rehabilitation Center in Long Beach. It's a part of the VA, and we have once a month programs where sight impaired, visually impaired veterans are at the Blind Rehabilitation Center for training and education, and we are one of the weekend options that they can come out and hang out with horses. And we've really collected a number of wonderful experiences giving these veterans their space to share their stories about being around horses, or in some cases their first exposure to a horse. And with that, I'll let Clay describe our work with the Mustangs.
Sure. My name is Clay McDermott. I'm co-founder of the Heart K Ranch in Caliente, California. We are partnered very closely with EET in the veterans programs and our many other endeavors. We're actually a working cattle ranch, but also a equine facility designed very deliberately for handling of wild horses, as well as being available to all aspects of horsemanship, whether in the training realm or bodywork realm, or any avenue you could possibly dream up. It was designed as well for the handling of horses, but as well as hosting people, to create a good camp to be in and learn about this. As far as my background with Mustangs, it really started with more the handling of a wild horse sanctuary, nonprofit horses, in terms of the daily handling and maintenance, and then of course simultaneously training and adoption, which of course is a passion and love that the opportunity to share with people who can benefit so deeply from it has been a gift. And it's something that really, as it develops, there's a certain amount of diligence and hard work and creativity that goes into it, but it kind of, these things that really mean something tend to take on a life of their own, and we're often surprised by what's happening next. So yeah, we're and again, the collaboration, the collaborative effort between, and to meet other organizations and to share that with each other, bounce back and forth is invaluable. So I think in terms of my experience with the veterans, I have no mental health background professionally, just a horsemanship and ranching background, but that shared with is a very valuable experience for them. It's so my therapists know, but is what I do on the daily, whether it's checking fences or working with horses, is therapeutic, absolutely. So we're just finding all the ways we can to share that.
That's a great perspective. And I actually just want to take a moment to acknowledge that this is kind of the 1 year anniversary this weekend. And this weekend is really special because a year ago, many of us all convened in Sacramento as Lisanne Fear ended her 5,000-mile trek across the country on horseback. A lot of us kind of had no idea what we were getting into, but we're
Get in.
but get in. But we all came together, and a lot of us met for the first time, and and we've picked up others along the way. But I think at the epitome of what we're doing, and you'll hear all of us say it, is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. And I think Clay brought it up earlier about, the horse world is highly about competition. Generally speaking, horse competition, it's not a team sport. It's you have to go out there and you have to be the best. And I think that kind of filters through a lot of different areas in horse world and in the horse people, because most of us that are in the horse healing arts didn't start out there. We started out in the competitive sector. But what I think is so cool is to see all of these people, whether they've got a program, whether they've submitted a book or a film or a piece of beautiful artwork or media arts. These people that are part of this organization are clearly passionate about two things: helping the horse and helping the human. And I think that's super inspiring. And I think we have all realized at this table but none of us can get to where we want to be alone. And I think we've also realized that everybody has a different skill set. And even though we might know all the same principles, you know, sometimes just having a different perspective or different words to put through it or a different understanding of things just helps us all be really powerful. And one of the things I admire is just the level of humility in this group and the willingness to learn and grow. And I know that that is going to impact all of the people on the planet, I hope, at some point, as we snowball forward and keep picking up more people like-minded. You know, hopefully we can set, and I think one of the things that we continue to talk about but maybe haven't labeled it as kind of best practices, right? And best practices can always get better with new perspectives and learning and trial and error. But I just think this is a really special weekend, I think, for Equus, for all of us, because I reflect on everything that we've been able to accomplish in a year, both at our own facilities and then coming back collectively, and all the lives that were saved and all the horses' lives that were saved. It's super inspiring. So I'll step off the soapbox.
I know 6 of us could probably go on for a long time, but yesterday we did get, the clock was up and we didn't get to hear from anybody, so.
Yes.
So we reformatted a little bit for today so that we can hear from you,
Yes.
so we can have more participants.
So we would love to lead from you guys, based on everything that you all know and bring to the table and everything you've heard us say. What are some topics that you would love to hear about regarding wild horses and veterans and mental health?
I'll shoot out a question. I think I'm not a veteran, but I have 2 brothers and 5 uncles that served. And currently my oldest is a Black Hawk helicopter captain. And so having not been a veteran, but having to live with the after effects of the Vietnam and so forth, we often forget about the families that are affected by this, whether it's a brother, uncle, and so forth. And so just commenting on that aspect, because that ripple effect of that person coming home is phenomenal. And so being exposed to equine now as an adult and is just really fascinating to see how that world is now coming together, and certainly for the mental health arena, a very unique opportunity here to speak about those things. So I hope that you guys.
Let me.
What's your name?
My name is John Matias.
John.
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
It's great to meet you, John.
Let me respond to that one. We have worked with veterans in a variety of the programs that Will and Clay described. That includes families, whole families. That includes couples where at least one is a veteran. It also includes Gold Star moms. We've done veterans retreats with couples, comprehensive, and on the premise that a great friend of mine, a great hero, he said to me, Mike, the veteran is not the only person in the family that has PTSD, right? And it's always at night. It's always fear, right? And he said, can you do something? And I said, we'll sure as hell try. I can report to you that without exception, these programs, these wonderful programs that these 2 men and others do, works 100% of the time, whether it's the children, the Gold Star moms, or the spouse. I'm positive in my assertions that way. I have no question about that.
And Amanda, you have a program that focuses on the adult children of veterans.
I do. So actually, John, thank you so much for bringing that up,
Great
because
question.
it's such a great question, and it's so important. And you know, sometimes we learn things intentionally, and sometimes we learn things from by default, right? And so by default, as we launched our veterans program, we started to realize that the truly the greatest underserved population in this whole veteran bubble is the adult children of veterans. Because there's a lot of programs for minor children of veterans, and there's a lot of programs for veterans. There's also a lot of programs for veteran spouses. But it kind of is like this gap of like, okay, well, you're an adult now, so you're not really entitled to these benefits. Now you can go to therapy, and you're not under that umbrella anymore of all the benefits that go to minor children of veterans. And so it actually started, Steve came through our program, and once a year we called it the spouse and caregiver program. So we were helping once a year. We put on the same exact program for the spouses. And Steve came to me and said, you know, I know that my daughter's struggling, and some of that has to do with when I was serving in the military. And I said, well, she can come to this. And that sparked an awareness that since then has really opened our eyes. And even more so, and we saw that a lot this year, is it tends to be in around the 50-year-old age range, right? Late 40s to 50s. And if we look at who their parents were, that was our Vietnam era, right?
Yes.
And as you guys have mentioned, that was like, here's a bottle of whiskey.
That was it. Mental
You know,
therapy.
don't wear your uniform, or just don't talk about it, or whatever. And I want to bring up a point that I think is valid in this, is that we talk about how horses reflect the life inside of the human, right? And horses are a mirror, and the horses are gonna act out the things that we repress. But guess who else does that? Our children, right?
Yeah.
And that becomes systemic, and that is passed down.
Yes, it does.
You know, so
No doubt.
I always say, when people come to me and they are having problems with their children, I say, if you don't fix yourself, your child will never fully heal, right? Because that has started with you. And so I will not continue on down that rabbit hole, but I think it's so valid, and so it is something that we are absolutely addressing. And so we offer the same service to adult children of veterans, and I can tell you, just from the ones that we've had come through, watching them open up and release their entire childhood of extreme repression, you know, and we believe in energy in our program. And so we believe that not only when those adult children of veterans heal, they break that trauma cycle for the future, but we think it heals back too. And we think that it you know, can heal ancestral. So
Can I add just a little bit as well?
do.
First, if you guys want to come scoot in and we'll just
Yeah,
pause
there's
for a minute. Perfect.
Good eye.
Thank you for that awareness. Absolutely. Way to read the room, Alex.
How'd you know you reserved 3 seats?
Well, we knew you were coming. So the one other little thing that I want to add to that is that with my, I've only recently joined in since March last year with this wonderful, amazing group. But with the people that I've talked to, all the providers that I've talked to, almost everybody, and it's the most amazing thing, if you guys know the 100 Monkeys theory, that
Yes.
it's so this, all across the country, we're seeing all of our different programs. We don't know each other, but all the different programs are beginning to not only take in the family members and the significant others and all the other groups that surround the individuals and recognize them, but it's also being able to give them in the program for us have dogs or other pets at home. And so we have an 8-week program, and we take and we do little different educations each week for an hour with the veterans, and then we teach them how to take it home to their own animals, so that we call it teach a man to fish. You always have it. It's not like you have to, if you can't afford therapy, or if you can't get a ride to therapy or something like that, you can't go. You can always have this, and we keep educating so that we're able to do it. And it's not just me. This is us. This is a movement that's happening.
It's beautiful.
And I think that is something we include families. We'll have events just for
You bet.
families. But as far as our program in Arizona, it's not something that we've really thought, or I haven't, outside that box. So I think to have something where the veteran knows, hey, if your uncle or brother, is struggling or could benefit, to invite them as well. And that's something that I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it's something that needs to be included, because it's another, like the adult children, that can kind of get lost.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
just like Lynn was saying, that we had, we all need to be able to nobody knows. Nobody knows all this stuff is coming out, so getting the word out is ginormous.
But
Yeah.
for that individual to undergo the process with their loved ones is so important, so that
Yes.
the understanding is across the board of where everybody's at. You hear, and I think Amanda and everybody here, you probably agree that one of the common themes of the veterans is guilt of what the family is having to go through because of it. And so, to undergo a process all by themselves, it still isolates that, instead of bringing that together and doing it together and trying to get to the bottom of it. If there is one. Yes.
A question. Hope it's not silly, but are there programs also for currently serving members?
We do serve people who are actively serving. I'm still I'm in the Guard. And so my Guard unit in Michigan has referred several people to our program. And I think there's a couple things in that, right? Number one, the stigma,
Oof,
right?
number one.
And I cannot speak for, I can only speak for the Air National Guard. I cannot speak for active duty or other branches. But I know that among the Guard nationally, like, we are really working hard to remove stigma. And while we still have a ways to go, I think we've come a long way. And so, personally, like, I had my mental health breakdown about 15 years ago, back when it wasn't okay to talk about. And I was very, very gracious to have an amazing wing commander who saw through that and decided to give me a chance, which, by all rationale, I should have been booted out 15 years ago. Fortunately, I wasn't, but it's been a passion of mine to advocate for the acceptability in asking for help. And I feel like in the Guard, we've come a long way, and that those repercussions are not there as they used to be. But it is still on people's minds, and going into a clinical program can have repercussions, because if you do seek clinical help, whether they're accepting of it or not, you will get a duty limitation code, and it takes several years to get that code removed, and a lot of paperwork, right? But I think what's cool too is, even though there are a lot of clinical programs, I don't know, are any of you clinical?
We do. We're not clinical, but one of the things that we offer is a wellness program.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't look like anything, but you can still be healed in any way.
Yeah. And so I think that's in everybody's awareness, because that has been a huge barrier to care. And I do feel like, yeah, absolutely, wellness programs. So like in our program, we're not required to report anything. They can just come for personal development. So.
In our case, we discovered an alarming increase in suicide among active military. And my information is that it is now approaching 5 per day. That's a ghastly number.
What's going on right now? That's why.
But the stigma cannot be overestimated. Right? It is what Randy and I did. Strap up your boots. Get your ass out there, and what I have to say is that a reliable statistic is that 80% of veterans who have PTS do not seek treatment, right? So we're only looking at that few, and the stigma is profound. With active veterans, we have a program through Pendleton. Pendleton in the San Diego area is the biggest complex of active duty military in the country, and we have entertained a group of about 6 Marines, and in fact one of them has written a grant proposal for us to work with active duty couples So I think that I would hope that by this time next year, the answer is resoundingly yes to your question.
And can I add, because I'm not sure if I'm aware of where the Department of Defense is actually funding for active duty service members, that there are programs out there working with active duty, like they're getting their money from private and maybe it's
TRICARE.
This one is
insurance, and which
this
is-
one is I believe that it is Walmart or Costco that has a grant.
Walmart has a big
Has
grant
a
program.
grant.
Yes.
And that proposal for the grant has just gone out. This is within the last couple of weeks. So I really do hope next year we have a resounding yes. There are programs for active military.
I think they were, so by and large, there are programs that are available, but they are much more discreet and a little more difficult to find now than programs for veterans.
Yes.
Yes.
It shouldn't be. And we've taken
It's just the stigma, I think, more
plenty
than
of
anything.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the awareness and taking some of that stigma away. Me personally, the first time I started getting obsessed with suicide, I was active. And
Yeah.
and there's no way I would have talked
You
to,
wouldn't have-
talked to anybody.
That's how you stop this generation of, coping in ways that we don't
Right.
want to see them coping.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, with the DoD in a whole, is we're checking boxes, right? And I actually had an airman a couple of years ago that did get put on suicide watch, and she was with me, and I was monitoring her, and we had to go to our mandatory check the box suicide awareness training, which is really insulting to people's intelligence, if I'm just being honest. And after that, she looked at me and she said, "That just made me want to kill myself more, because now I feel like there's no hope and I'm a burden." And so it really is it's a huge problem.
It needs to be like a requirement that we're supplying this, you're required to take this, we want you to take this, you're gonna benefit
Yes.
from it, and we can.
And do you know how you can help us? Do you know how you all can help us? Write a letter to your congressman.
Say it out loud
get-
too.
Say it loud.
Say it out loud.
Get your legislation involved. I always use Wild Horse Annie as she's like one of my greatest heroes, because she was so tenacious and so determined, but she was also strategic, and she leveraged an audience that the nation had to listen to.
Yeah.
And there's been many nights that I've laid awake in bed trying to solve this problem, having these same thoughts as I'm sure we've all had. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I think, it's hard. And it's hard as somebody who is still serving in the military. I have to be very careful on my opinions and the things that I say, right? And we can all complain about it till we're
Why?
blue in the face. Because you're going to get me in trouble. You see what he did there? But anyway, again, like, if we can make enough noise, at some point it's going to be loud enough that somebody's going to have to listen to us. And I was actually on a meeting yesterday with somebody, because one of my life goals is to get part of our curriculum into active duty as prevention, because we all know the military is not great at prevention. We just respond to crisis. That's what we're good at. But I think people are waking up, and we still have a long road ahead of us, but the awareness is there, and I think there are enough people that want to do something about it. And again, I think the key here is coming together. If I've got a message over here and you've got a message over here, and we're saying the same thing kind of, but not really, we need clear, concise communication. We need petitions. We need to talk to our congressman. I can say the governor of Michigan, where I serve in the Air National Guard, she is so pro-military. She has gotten hundreds of millions of dollars for our guard bases, and she's advocating for us. And I think if other governors in other states would follow along, we could get a lot further. But obviously, we know there's a lot of loss in the lives of our airmen and soldiers and Marines. it's not costly enough to the Department of Defense to do something. So
Yeah.
what is costly enough is the question we have to find the answer to. Did you have a question?
I had a couple of comments, just, piggybacking off of that. With our daughter, she's a commander, and every time I'm visiting Texas at her house, she's getting calls about suicidal, soldiers in her unit.
Yeah.
And having to deal with it, I'm a mental health therapist, and she has no background in mental health. She's a pilot. And so she's dealing with this. They give her no resources, really. I mean, she's having to send her soldiers through the emergency room at the local hospital, and they have to figure out, what psychiatrist can see them within a certain time frame that'll take their insurance. It is a nightmare to watch and just help try to encourage her. And it's just because I happen to be her mom, but there's not clear direction on military commanders on how to even handle this crisis. And then she has her own and
Right.
cannot talk about it, especially as a pilot. Can't reach out at all. And as a female, 12 years in, it's a nightmare.
Absolutely.
You are absolutely correct.
Yeah, it is.
And as mom and mental therapist.
Yeah, and I just realized right now when you said something a few minutes ago, Amanda, long journey to become a mental health therapist and to specialize in trauma, and it goes back to being a child of a veteran with PTSD that was never treated, and growing up with those nights and watching that and seeing that.
Ooh.
And veteran suicides in our family. My uncle was one of them, his brother, and other suicides that fell after that. It becomes just a family generational kind of curse after several. But I never heard that term until you just said it. An adult child of a veteran. I kind of know, I guess, intuitively that's why I am where I am, but
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody talk about the need of adult children.
That's why we love her.
Well, the unfortunate truth of it is all of our organizations, all we can really do is pick up pieces
Yeah.
after. What you're speaking of is the process, the current process that we really can't touch in terms of the individuals, to a certain extent.
Oh,
Right, so we as organizations deal with people, once they are free to pursue such paths. So it's difficult to say what to do about the rest of it.
But that's what I like about what Lynn and Horses for Mental Health is doing through their films and stuff. It's really is a unique opportunity to dialogue at these various levels. Like, man, I've experienced that, but I'm not in. But I know someone that was, and so that conversation, it's really being amplified in ways that folks are really appreciating because they know, wow, I know, it's one remove from kind of thing. So appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, this
Good question.
young
Sure,
lady
go
that there had a question.
And actually, just maybe before we move on, just to share about, on Horses for Mental Health, if you go to our stories page or our YouTube channel, we have different videos, but one is advocating for first responders. So I know we're talking about military, but I just want to expand it for first responders and actually that call to action, that there are resources to go reach out to your legislators. So that particular video is a program that reached out to their state legislators in Minnesota and ended up, and the bill actually passed after this video was made, $250,000 to serve 1,000 first responders mental health services through horses. So, and that's at the state level, but it's definitely possible at the federal level with, like you guys are saying, there's, as you guys know, because you shared it a lot, we also have little case stories, and one is on a veteran that is just 3 minutes, and it's just a way, like I said, to start the dialogue and maybe start finding those advocates that are in those positions. At that policy level, we partner with American Horse Council. If you're not a member of American Horse Council, I encourage you to become a member of it. They're the lobbying group for the equine industry. And individuals can become members. It's not very much, but that's supporting them and doing the efforts they're doing. And in fact, because of their efforts and with PATH International, they did that the federal level did pass. I think it was it was 1.5 million, then it went to 5 million, but I don't know what it ended. But that ended up going into the Veterans Administration Adaptive Sports Grant to specifically cover non-clinical services incorporating horses, but to benefit mental health. There's some struggles with all of that, with kind of where they put it. But the point is, there's money there. Horses for Mental Health did just get the grant this year. That is now benefiting 12 programs who provide these services for veterans, and that will serve, I think, over 300 veterans with 16 hours of services. So it's happening, and it happens because I just wanted to build on. There are resources to go. We have a resource of a summary of research on our site as well. So you can say, hey, what's the credibility of this? Well, here's a whole list of peer-reviewed studies. It tells about each study, what population it was about, and stuff like that. So those are there. That can help you say, hey, I'm going to reach out to someone in my community or my local VA center or our local first responders and say, hey, let's start conversation, see what we can do.
Mm-hmm. Very valuable.
So I work for a community college in Texas, and we have, and I don't think we're unique in this, we have a very strong veterans and active duty military services center. We also have an ag program. So I wonder if there would be a way to partner with community colleges in your states, because I don't think we're unique. I think that this is something that community colleges do focus on, trying to help transition vets and active duty military and their families as well, to make sure that they serve the whole family. We just also happen to have an ag department as well, and so I'm just curious if maybe that's a way to be able to reach out as a
community colleges in all the other states, but it sure seems like they're always eager, and it's not going to be tons and tons of money or anything like that, but they're always eager to have something different to offer, to get more people to come to their school, so they can.
Yeah, and when you're looking for partnership as well, it looks really good on a resume or a proposal. So we have a beekeeping program that's very small, but the veterans, every time they come to the Healing Intensive, we have Dave, who is an alumni, who the bees saved his life. He was giving little demonstrations, and then we partnered with Ashland University, which is in Ohio, and they have a farmer program. So we got some sheep, and they brought somebody to shear the sheep, and we did a learn about sheep day, because actually our nation has a shortage of sheep farmers, and there's monies out there, and they will give you a plot of land, and they will give you sheep, and they will give you the training. And so Dave was apprenticing in beekeeping, but I was able to partner him with Ashland, and he's getting a free education to become a certified beekeeper now, and a teacher and a trainer, so that the bees saved his life. Now he has purpose because he gets to show the veterans at the Healing Intensives, and now he's just taking that to the next level. He's got his own honey company now, and he doesn't only have hives at our farm now, he has them all over. So that's just one great example of that. And we also have the Farmer Veteran Coalition, and I don't know if you guys have heard of the Farmer Veteran Coalition, but they will not give you money, but if you acquire land, they will buy all kinds of equipment for you to, thousands of dollars. You can apply for grants, but there is a huge shortage of farmers across the world, or across the country at least. And I know the government is very motivated to get more farmers, and veterans seem to be the perfect candidate, because you get to be alone and in nature, and don't have to do a lot of customer service and all the fun things. But yes, there are resources, and we are very close with our veteran services at several different colleges. I don't know if anyone else has anything to.
No, that's new information for me. The agriculture one, I love it.
And there is a place in Montana called Bear Hug Ranch that was started by, I don't know if he was a Marine, he was a veteran, Army or Marines. And what they have is really unique. It's a 90-day program. So if you're getting off of active duty, and I know the Army has what's called Skill Bridge, so they'll pay for you to get a secondary education to go into another career field. But they take you, I think it's either 90 days or 6 months, and they teach you how to start a cult, and then you get that cult, and then you learn how to work cattle, you sleep in a tent, you do all of these things, and then at the end of this, I think it's 90 days, they make you basically a cowboy, and they're networked with ranches all over the country, and so they'll actually place you as a ranch hand, and you'll have all the training that you need, and that's all done at no cost as well. It's called Bear Hug Ranch. I heard about it on a podcast, so I called the director, and I'm like, hey, we need to network. But that's a really powerful program, too, just in case you're ever running into a veteran that wants to be a cowboy.
I think in partnering with the community colleges, it speaks to, it aligns with the vocational training that we found in conversations with the veterans, and Amanda's film last night with the one veteran really illustrated is they're frustrated with the clinical model. They've reached a end point with that, and they want to do instead of talk. And in the film last night, he emphasized how talking about his past only re-traumatized him over and over. And what I think everybody on this panel represents, definitely a willingness to work with the clinical programs to serve the veterans, but also to present alternatives to the clinical programs that serve the veterans in a non-clinical setting. I do not have a clinical background, but I find that working with the veterans, just getting their hands on the horse is the magic that they need to start to open those doors to transformation. And all I can do when I'm working with a veteran out there is say, how you doing? And connect with them. And I think the other change we're seeing in a lot of the programs is there are a lot of short duration programs, and a veteran can have this little island of experience, and then they're back to their life, and they're adrift. They're maybe feeling rudderless. And what we were striving for is a long-term connection with the veterans. So a weekly program for a couple hours a day, rather than a weekend intensive and then we never see you again, because that's another way of building that connection with them. And we focus on small groups, 1 or 2 or 4 veterans at a time to do that, and to allow us to, connect with them in a way where they feel like somebody's listening to them, the horse is listening to them, the horse is guiding them through their journey, rather than them rehashing old wounds and not being offered an alternative that can help them heal.
As Will mentioned earlier, our program, which is at no cost to veterans, we are a 501c3 charity. We have several people who have gone all the way through the program, including degree work at University of Denver, and now have businesses or undertakings of their own. In at least 2 cases that I'm aware of, coming back and using these skills and degrees and so forth for the benefit of veterans, in one case women, and so it's quite a thing for us to see that cycle, right? And Will has put together some marvelous kind of training programs. We have Annie's Boot Camp, which is boot camp. This is horse handling to the nth degree. And we couple that with the Masterson Weekend Seminar. So that is, so Annie's Boot Camp qualifies the horse handling requirement for the Masterson Weekend Seminar. Will has the final approval. This person is ready and is capable of doing it. So along the way, we want to build a structure of learning for those for whom that applies. And I do believe that our educational systems, and particularly community colleges, should be a focus for us. We can't even see the surface that needs to be scratched. That's where all of this is. And so many of the things that we're talking about are new or near new or not well known. And we think that's a shame. I think that the biggest single thing we need to do is to get the word out. That's our dear Lynn. Get the
fearless
word
leader.
out. Tell a lot of people, right?
I get back to the beauty of the collaboration is yes, it's important that the continuation that Will talks about so that it continues and it keeps going. It's not just an island as he calls it, which is a beautiful way of putting it. And not only that of our dedication to the individual, but to have the network for them. So yes, different vocations, maybe horseshoeing school sounds good to somebody.
Yep.
Maybe being a vet tech sounds good to somebody else. Not everybody's gonna go into the horse trainer route. That's sort of a window into the world. Of,
Only crazy people do
of
that.
possibilities, right?
The bankruptcy starter kit.
Well, who on this panel isn't
So it's
crazy?
not just our individual
Who on this panel isn't a horse
organization's
trainer?
commitment to it, but then to be able to say,
Me.
well, you should meet my friend Randy in Arizona, or how about, you ever been to Ohio in January?
Not on purpose.
Or actually, maybe she'll come.
You might have to ask Lynn that.
But,
You can
so
come to
that
the
you have
wilderness.
that, so it's not, because as we want to continue down the road now, and like I said, if one person shows up, then it goes on. It
Yeah.
continues. There's not a quota to meet in order to do the program.
Mhm.
But that being said, to continue on with new people and also continue the program ourselves with veterans that have been through it. But like I said, to reconnect to those vetted for and like-minded organizations that can give them something else.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on two of those things, and the first one being, what Who's does is very, very specific. We are breakthrough healing intensive. So we bring people out, we offer them a massive shift in perspective. We help them, typically people come in with a couple of big rocks, and we help them clear those things, and then we help them create a new mission and vision moving forward, right? Because 50% is about dealing with stuff from the past, and 50% is about getting on with your life. And we do the 4-day healing intensive. Next year we're going to 5 days. They get a 90-day workbook, they get an accountability partner, and then they get a mentor. So in every single healing intensive, we have 2 of the participants are alumni. So they also get an incentive to come back and serve after they've implemented the work in their life. So we give them lots of ways to stay plugged in. They all go into a WhatsApp group. So, I moderate like 50 WhatsApp groups, which I love. It's cool because some of those groups talk every single day after years. So we do everything that we can. We tell people, like, once you're in the family, you're in the family. But a lot of those people, which was easy when we were serving locally, but now we're serving on this national level. And we have got to have places to plug them back in when they go back so they can continue to get that connection with the horse. Because as we can do many things on Zoom today, like, you just can't replicate that touch, that connection,
I'm working on it.
that resonance.
I'm working on it.
Okay, you let me know when you have that figured out. But again, number one, that's where these collaborative relationships and connections, they're critical. They're essential, right? And I think every one of us can say, and I mean, Hooves has been around since 2009. We still call ourselves the best kept secret in Toledo that doesn't want to be a secret. And that's where Lynn comes in, and we
Go
need
Lynn.
Lynn, and so, but then at the same time, there's also best practices and standards, and that's a spectrum too. So we have to make sure that the people that come into this, that we do share values, we do share the level of integrity, we do share those same expectations. And I think as this has developed organically, I feel like we've kind of created this vibration where if people come in and they're not congruent, I think they just naturally feel that and dismiss themselves. But those are just all phenomenal points, Clay. And again, everything we talk about just drives home to, like, none of us can do this alone. It's gonna take every one of us in this room. It's gonna take, we can put a dent in those, so.
Well, that's
The question about education just rocked my boat. So I want to take a little step backward. In setting up the programs for working with the wild Mustangs, the first step that Clay has established is curiosity. For you educators, curiosity. So once the horse is curious, then that becomes part of the dynamic that we use in our standard practices. What I want you to understand is that curiosity translates to our veterans. They have a curiosity in how does this work and why does this work? Whether it's beekeeping or whether it's anything else. But curiosity is the key to learning anything, right? Whether it's formal education or a vocation or whatever that direction is. It's all part of the educational process. And when we can find curiosity, when we can stimulate curiosity, we consider that a win.
Thank you.
You guys have had some great questions, and I kind of want to suggest a question. And that's, why the Mustangs? What are the parallels? I guarantee, I mean, we could go on forever. Why? It really is the meaning of of that relationship between a veteran and a Mustang. Talk about two of the most displaced demographics in the world. So it's there. There's not much setup needed. A lot of days. In fact, I feel like my successful part of the program was just making sure nobody got into trouble, and they figured out the rest.
He's so humble.
Well, that's the truth of it. It's there, and yesterday we made this draw on this idea that if a Mustang, who is also dealing with their own trauma in a similar way, if they show, if they become debilitated by that, if they become slow because of that, if they're injured more or less, and they are a liability to the rest of their herd, just like a serviceman, and that goes on. The parallels, like I said, this is a whole can of worms, but I just that is kind of the one piece that's hard to pass over. That there's a reason why it's Mustangs and why it's this.
Mayor.
Tomorrow as well. We're back.
Let me just say thank you. Thank you.
And if we use them all up today, because yesterday's panel was amazing, this one was even more amazing, so I can't wait till what happens tomorrow.
stumped us all.
Patricia,
Thank you so much.
I want to speak just briefly to you and Clay, because we started talking about this yesterday. You had said, how do we stop this? How do we get it? And you were saying all we can do is pick up the pieces. When we're talking about veterans, that's right where we are. But one of the programs that I have, one of the things that I do is I work with the schools and the high schools and the middle schools. And I teach programs that are ranching, horse training, and prep for equine assisted therapy assistance. And which I know sounds weird, but and these school systems, they select kids who are interested, and the kids have the opportunity. They come out, they give you 60 to 90 hours of their volunteer work in exchange for you training them in a vocation. And they consider in Colorado, they consider the horse as a vocation. So it just briefly, in relation to how do we get it before we pick up the pieces?
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, you've seen in Facebook, they're like saying, oh, this school in New York is doing meditation instead of whatever. When we add in these things to the younger generations, that's how we change it.
Well, thank you. And I really didn't mean to sound bleak that's, actually, I didn't mean to say that that's all we can do. And it's what we are doing.
It's what we're stuck with right now.
But it's how we all feel on the day to day. It's
Not
totally
that I believe
valid.
that there is a solution and that there shouldn't be and that there won't be, or many solutions. But that's what it feels that we are doing.
Well, and to change reality, we have to associate to reality. first.
Exactly.
And that is reality. And we can all choose to feel however we want to about that.
Right.
But
But conversations like these, you know, and events like these and days like these are what, I mean, these are actually big strides in that direction, believe it or not.
huge.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
To go back on Mustangs, why Mustangs and veterans, do they recognize that our American Mustangs have also fought for us? Is there a coordination, you know?
Does who recognize that?
There's about 3 people that recognize that.
About
Right.
So thank you.
But yeah, it's a great perspective.
But does that help, that's what I'm asking, is that what helps them kind of relate? Is that a big part of it?
Well, this may answer your question in a slightly roundabout way, but one of the things about working with a veteran on a Mustang is, especially in the gentling and inertial stages of training of the Mustang, is we know for a fact that at the end of a certain period of time, that horse is going somewhere else and will be separated from that veteran. And one of the challenges that a lot of veterans face is dealing with that loss and separation. They may have dealt with that in combat. They may have had a buddy die right next to them, and they guard themselves against making connections because they're afraid this person's just going to disappear again. So we start from the go with saying, this horse at the end of a certain period of time is going to get off to another trainer. They're going to get sold to a new owner who's going to carry on from there. And by presenting that at the ground level from the start, we can just have conversations as a trainer and a friend and a peer to say, how do you feel about that? You know, and again, I don't have a therapeutic background. I'm not a counselor, and all due respect to the people that do that, I think a lot of the times it's like 2 of the questions I pose to the veterans when we're working with the horses at the right time is to say, what would you like to say to this horse? Knowing that they're going to be gone soon. And then after they respond to that, I'll often ask them, what do you think this horse would like to say to you? And the answers that they come up with in there are, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about.
I got
the
your
things
chills.
that-
Me too.
The things that they've responded to, and what often that response is, you know, this animal that can't speak to me, we can't share a conversation other than through me trying to understand their body language, for some reason trusts me, a predator, to be a part of their herd, and they haven't felt that unity and camaraderie since maybe basic training, you know, when they enlisted. And you know, I think that's part of the drive to for some veterans to join the military, is they're looking for their people, they're looking for their herd, and the horse and the Mustang in particular is uniquely suited to provide that experience for them.
Absolutely. And then that too, you know, it's not so much a, you know, just so you know, this is going to end in separation. It's not that sort of thing. It's actually more of a, will you help us get this horse on the road to it so we
Right.
can help the next one and the next one, you know, and so that then it becomes this purpose. And that, I mean, don't get me wrong, anytime you are around a horse is a good thing. Anytime if just to go and, you know, and pet a gentle horse is a wonderful thing, but it's almost, it goes back to that. That almost is clinical. That's just for them. That's, you know, and it doesn't have as much of a purpose as this process of, you know, now and it's a challenge of separating. It's a proud event. It's a happy event that horse went to where it's going. And, you know, to see, just to make that flip of perspective carries over to other things. So
I'm gonna have to.
That's great.
I'm gonna have to step out.
Yeah, I
You-
think we're supposed to be wrapping up,
Oh, yeah.
and
I know, but can I just say one more thing? I know I'm gonna keep this strung out, but I feel like it's relevant, and I know, Lily, like you've mentioned a couple times, like clinical, and nothing that we do is clinical. But one of the things that I've observed, and there's nothing wrong with clinical, like it all has its place.
Absolutely.
But I feel like sometimes the worlds collide, and it's kind of a tit for tat, you know, or whatever. It's just a different perspective. But one of the things that I've just personally experienced in the hundreds of veterans that have been through our program is the healing doesn't always necessarily happen when somebody's advising them. And one of the mottos that we run our program on is the quality of your life is based on the questions you ask. So if you want a better life, ask better questions. And so I have now developed a training where I teach other people our facilitation model, which does not require any mental health participation. And we actually have a day in my program called the Day of Shut the F Up. Okay. And so I think when we rely on this framework of universal quality questioning, and it's not us, we're just the conduit to ask the question. And one thing that I've come to know about Will is that he doesn't say a whole lot all the time. And I think, like, okay, first of all, in teaching, and I think that's truly a tremendous asset that I think is overlooked a lot, because when people come to us for help, I think we feel this pressure that we are responsible for saying something that's going to make them feel better. But the reality is if you come to me with a problem and I give you a solution, and then you go out and take my advice, whose win is that? Who gets that win? And if I give you advice and you go out and it doesn't work, then who carries the blame for that? The person does, right? And so I think at the end of the day, if you have the ability to ask a quality question and shut the F up, you will do more for that person than any other thing in the world. And any of us can do that, right? And so I think in today's, needing a quick fix or the accommodation of technology in society, we've just lost the sight of being present for somebody and allowing them to answer their own questions. And so I just wanted to.
Yes, thank you
Well
guys
said.
all.
Beautiful. That, yeah.
Genuine interest, I
Need
can
rate there.
definitely feel in the room, and that's all a very,
Perfect, thank you.
it's always
Yes.
a very good thing for us. Sometimes
And
we
we're
don't
obviously a
feel that.
tiny bit passionate, and so we could probably sit here for 5 more hours. We won't do that to you. Thank you.
But I think everybody is available here. I know Randy's got to
Yeah,
get back
yeah.
to work.
Yes.
But if you'd like to carry on the conversation off the record here, we're all happy to do that.
Yes. Thank you all very much.
You guys. I will be back tomorrow.
Yeah, we're back tomorrow at
Nice.
11.
Sometimes I feel like I talk too much.
It'll be a
I
short
always
meeting.
feel like I talk too much
Sort of
sometimes.
questions and answers.
That was an amazing group. That between the us and there is no us in that, all of us.
I've ever known, if you asked her a question, she never answered it. She asked you a question,
Yep.
and she'd ask you another question, and at some point in time, you arrived at your own answer.
Listen deeply, versus advise better.
Yes.
What a great panel.
Absolutely marvelous. Apparently, I was not breathing enough because I'm.
You had lunch with Bonnie there for a
I
while.
did, and then everyone left.
My ride is here.
Excellent.
I'm being told.
Really?
We're gonna, I think when we go away,
Yeah,
don't heat up, I think we'll go, we need for, like, heat up, to be able to
Yeah,
get
the tea
active.
has,
Yeah, we've actually